Hello again. I rather suspect that there are still some people in this country who are unaware that ID cards have now been brought into existence and legally mandated. The reason that this might not be more widely known is that they are not being called ID cards. Their creation has been concealed behind a dull and turgid sounding piece of legislation bearing the name of the Data Use and Access Act 2025. This has now passed through both houses of Parliament and received royal assent, become law. What does this new law cover? I cannot do better than to quote the long title of this bill, which tells us all we need to know about it. In the description to this video, I give a link to the government website so that viewers may check for themselves what I am about to read out. Ready? For it is a bit of a mouthful. This law is intended to make provision about access to customer data and business data, to make provision about services consisting of the use of information to ascertain and verify facts about individuals, to make provision about the recording and sharing and keeping of registers, of information relating to apparatus in streets, to make provision about the keeping and maintenance of registers of births and deaths, to make provision for the regulation of the processing of information relating to identified or identifiable living individuals, to make provision about privacy and electronic communications, to establish the Information Commission, to make provision about information standards for health and social care, to make provision about the grant of smart meter communication licenses, to make provisions about the disclosure of information to improve public service delivery, to make provision about the retention of information by providers of internet services in connection with investigations into child deaths, to make provision about providing information for purposes related to the carrying out of independent research into online safety matters, to make provision about the retention of biometric data, to make provision about services for the provision of electronic signatures, electronic seals, and other trust services, to make provision about the creation and solicitation of purported intimate images and for connected purposes. All this, and indeed the whole text of the Act, may be summed up as follows. This law will allow for the creation of a so-called digital identity. There will be no obligation on anybody to have such a thing, which will contain all your personal details. But if you do not have one, then you will be unable to buy a bottle of wine or indeed a packet of disposable razors, because this digital identity will be the standard way of confirming your age. You will not be able to register a birth, rent a flat, get married, buy a house, get a job, or register with a GP. Nor will you be able to obtain a passport or open a bank account unless you have a digital identity. Without a digital identity, you will be a non-person. What safeguards will there be to stop your personal information from this new form of virtual identity card getting into the wrong hands? Here is where we run into an old rule of mine which predates the modern era of digital communications and so on. Now that digital ID cards are a thing, the government is launching a campaign to assure us that there is no danger of our details getting into the wrong hands or being sold to somebody in China or America. The first step is that they will be publicising what they call the trust framework, which is essentially telling us to trust them with our information. It has for over half a century been a foundation stone of my dealings with others that certain phrases usually mean the complete opposite of what their words convey when somebody uses these expressions when talking to you. For instance, if somebody says, I can change, that is as clear an indication as you could hope for that the person concerned cannot change. In the same way, anybody who says to me, it's not what you think, is telling me plainly that it is exactly what I think. Perhaps the clearest example, though, is a man who says, trust me. This invariably means that one should not, under any circumstances or conditions, trust this person. When the government appeals to me to trust them, all my hackles rise, and I know they are up to no good. And so it is in this case.